Well, hello, the internet, and welcome to another edition of the Breakfast Club with Got That Funk. I'd like to thank you for joining me. I would also like to thank Kazoom Fowler and Sword Sage for sort of keeping the channel alive in my absence. They've been posting videos off and on over the past few weeks, and I do appreciate it, guys. A special thanks to Kazoom for making his video yesterday, because he knew damn well that it would kind of force me back onto the channel. So y'all have Kazoom to thank for my presence here at the moment, because I kind of lost heart with the Breakfast Club. I'm not going to close the channel down or anything like that. And eventually I do plan on building up with more hosts and whatever, but just lately with everything that's been going on in the world, I just have not had the motivation to go out there and scout for new talent, as it were, to get, so I would like to get some hosts to fill the whole week back up again on the Breakfast Club, and find those hosts in places that I've never looked before. I'd like to get a group of strangers together rather than people who relatively orbit in the same communities on YouTube. And see how that gels. That's my goal in the long term. But in the short term, just right now, the past few weeks in general, I mean, I was ill all of February, and that was no fun. And just lately, with everything going on in the world, I literally just have, my spirit is tired, folks. And I'm just like, you know, sometimes I just want to throw up my hands and just go, to hell with all this shit, you know. But I don't really mean that. And that's so I keep clinging on. So here I am. Sorry, I've been gone for so long. So Kazoom Fowler made a video yesterday on the Breakfast Club, which he knew damn well I'd have to respond to. And okay, here you go. Now, Kazoom, I think you sort of are under the impression, based on our comment exchange on your videos on your own channel, that, that I disagree with you more than I actually do about some of the subjects you're talking about in terms of equality of outcome. Now, first of all, let me say that the reason I was mostly confused about the whole equality of outcome thing when you made the video on your channel the other day was because on the internet, I've only ever heard people argue against equality of outcome. I've never heard anybody go, what we need in this world is more equality of outcome. I've never heard anyone use those words. Now, I'm not objecting to the words because I don't like the words. It's got nothing to do with whether I like the words or not. But what you're using the words for isn't what the words actually mean, so it's just really confusing. Because equality of outcome used to mean, in the social sciences sense, that you know, people basically achieve the same outcomes no matter what they did in life. So a doctor would make the same amount of money as a farmer or a fireman or a teacher or a baker or a lawyer, that kind of thing. And if that's the case, then yeah, I don't agree with equality of outcome. To me, I understand that some jobs are more important and therefore should have a higher remuneration than other jobs. Having said that, I also agree a little bit with the ethic that says that you know, the workers of the world deserve a hell of a lot more of a share than what they get. And that's especially been true over the past 30 years, as the very, very rich have basically clawed more and more of the money in their direction. But I digress. Anyway, as regards equality of outcome, first of all, let me just get a couple of precepts down that I'm pretty sure we all agree on. We all agree, don't we, viewers and Kazoom? We all agree that people should be equal under the law, correct? That you should have the same rights as everyone, regardless of your ethnicity, regardless of your sex, your gender, your sexual orientation, regardless of your ethnicity, political beliefs, religion, how rich or poor you are. You should be equal under the law. Do we agree? I hope so. And if we do agree that we should all be equal under the law, then we have to start exploring what equality under the law actually means. See, the term equality of outcome, to me, I don't necessarily reject, you know, outright. I'll give you some examples. Here in the UK, there's the NHS, the National Health Service. And, you know, it doesn't matter if I get a cold or if I get cancer. I'm going to go down to the NHS and get the care that I need. And it is not going to matter how rich or poor I am to get that care. I'm not going to have to reach in my pocket, not even once. No such thing as a deductible or a co-payment or anything like that. I'm going to go there. I'm going to get the care that I need. And then I'm going to leave. I'm going to walk in injured or ill and walk out healthy or dead. And the outcome is equal. You know, you walk in ill or injured, you walk out hopefully healthy. Equal outcome, equal opportunity, equal pay. None of us have to pay for it out of our pocket because we all pay for it through our taxation. To me, that's a really good example of where equality of outcome is a good thing, not just in the NHS, but in healthcare in general. In America, you pay for your healthcare. Fine. Now, having said that, you accept a model in America where some people will get better care than others because of their ability to pay or not pay. So you've already written that into your attitude about healthcare. So I have to accept that in and of itself. However, I'm sure none of us would say that your healthcare should depend, if it depends only on whether or not that you can pay, it should therefore not depend on your sex, your ethnicity, you know, your political affiliations. You shouldn't be able to be denied care or offered care that others wouldn't have based on any of these factors. Do we agree? So we can agree that equality of outcome in healthcare is a good thing. As long as you can pay for the service, the outcome should be the same. Correct? Regardless of who you are. So there's an example of equality of outcome. Let's talk about education for a second. You know, not everybody's going to get the same grades in high school. But if you complete high school successfully, you get a high school diploma. And as far as work is concerned, not university necessarily, but as far as work is concerned, a high school diploma is supposed to equalize everybody who has one. Equal, right? Now, obviously, you know, you can have a higher education and so forth, and you can get better grades in high school. But I've never had a job that didn't, you know, I never got a degree in college, so I've never had a job that actually asked me for my grades in high school. They just asked me if I had a high school diploma, but I've never been asked for my grades, not by a job. I've been asked for them by higher education, but I've never been asked for them about work. Do you have a diploma? Yes. That's it. Done. So there's an example where there's this equalizing factor that we've built in to society, which basically is meant to equalize people. So that if you have a high school diploma and this other person over here who's perhaps of a different background to you, who's more you know, economically disadvantaged, at least they got their diploma. They should have the same, they should therefore be considered to have the same merit for that entry-level job that I as a white guy have, okay? Because we've both got the same diploma. So what other kinds of merit could we be talking about? And this is where it gets a bit murky, because see, I absolutely agree with the fundamental principle that you know, you should earn things. The harder you work, the more you should earn. And when it comes to you know, important positions, you know, you should be given those positions based on your merits. But I don't see a contradiction between someone having merit and someone being of a minority ethnicity. I don't see why that's a contradiction. I'll tell you a story now. I'll go off tangent a little bit here, but last night I watched the movie on Netflix called Rogue One, a Star Wars story. I had seen it before in the cinema, but I hadn't seen it since then. And one thing when you're watching Rogue One, it's extremely obvious when you're watching Rogue One that they went out of their way to hire a very diverse cast. I literally can't think of a more diverse cast in a movie, certainly not in a sci-fi movie of that sort of nature. And while I was thinking about it, while I was watching it, I was thinking about the video that Kazoo made on his own channel on this subject. And I was just marveling at the fact that, okay, so they've obviously gone out of their way to hire people who are of ethnic minority backgrounds to act in this movie. However, every single one of them was perfectly competent and acted in their role believably. And, you know, and what I'm looking at the movie wondering, why would anyone think this movie would be any better if these people were white instead of minorities? Why would anyone think that's any better? Why would you think that they don't have the merit to earn their way onto that movie just because they obviously tried to get minorities to act in that movie? You know, they went out of their way to hire a diverse cast. Now, that's something Kazoom's saying they shouldn't do. Oh, just hire the best people. Well, what makes you think the best people aren't minorities? This, to me, that's an implied racism. I read a quote on Twitter, must be a year or so ago now, which really comes to mind. Is, when you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like discrimination. And man, do I really think that's true. The whole Trump phenomenon and everything, you got a whole bunch of people freaking the fuck out because they see that they're, the white people in America are, not going to be the majority in, 2050, blah, 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 blah. You'll be the biggest ethnic group, but you won't be more than 50% of the population. And they're freaking the fuck out. And the reason they're freaking the fuck out, whether they want to admit it or not, is because they think if they're not the majority, they won't be in control. If they're not the majority, they might be eventually, someday, a minority. And they implicitly don't want to be a minority because they know it sucks for minorities. So, from my point of view, the situation can be cured by making it not suck to be a minority. Part of that means giving minorities more opportunities. How do you give minorities more opportunities without some form of discrimination? Because as Kazum rightly points out, affirmative action, for example, uses racism and sexism to counter racism and sexism. And he disagrees with it on that fundamental principle because it's a self-contradictory proposition. We're going to solve discrimination against this group by discriminating against this group instead. So you haven't really fixed the problem, you just transferred it. And I think that's the way an awful lot of people look at this situation. But I would say that, quite honestly, that just presumes that everybody's born into an equal station in life. And it doesn't work out that way. People have different starting points in life, right? And we try in many different ways, like I said, with high school diplomas, for example, to give some kind of equalization where everyone has the same baseline from which to sort of jump into the world. But the bottom line is history shows that, minority groups will be discriminated against for things like housing or bank loans or educational opportunities or job opportunities, unless there's some kind of quota system or some kind of way of monitoring to make sure that they aren't being disadvantaged because of their minority status. And I want to ask again, how can you be sure that they're not being disadvantaged because of those reasons unless you've got some kind of mechanisms in place to make sure that that's not happening? Whether that's a quota, which I disagree with in principle, but in practice I see the practical necessity of it. Again, without some kind of quota, how can you enforce the law? How can you know that discrimination is not being followed? It's an interesting conversation. I'm sure I could go off on it a bit further, but I think I need to go to the toilet now. So I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you for watching this video. I look forward to all the comments in the comment section down below. And I'll probably see you again next week on The Breakfast Club. Thanks for watching. Peace.